Hi everyone, welcome and welcome back to this week's video. Today we're doing French curls, and this is out of the box for two reasons for me. One, the color. I've never done a bright color like this before, so that's new. And second, I've never worked with French curls before. And I'm gonna be upfront with you, as I always am from the jump. This was not my favorite style for many reasons, but face value, it looks good. It gets the job done. It looks okay. There are a few challenges here and there, and we'll get to them as we go through the video. But first, let's start with parting. Hi, we're gonna get straight into it. I'm not gonna lie to you, this one's gonna be a long one. Today we're doing braids, single braids at that. I haven't done single braids in a minute. It's been, I want to say 10 months since I've done my last single braids. It's been a while. Today we're also doing something very different. We're also doing French curls today. I've never done French curls before. I don't know why I thought I'd do French curls. I just wanted something different, I guess. I'm going to show you all the materials ahead of time before I get started. Starting with basics. We need rubber bands. I like to part before I even get started, so I need these small little rubber bands to part my head. I need furniture for my roots. Your basic combs, scissors, probably need a clip or two here and there to section off all your hair, and then actual braiding hair. I ordered this off of AliExpress, and this is in the color Burgundy. I've never done the Burgundy before. I don't know why I thought to do Burgundy this time, but we're doing Burgundy, and yeah, it's gonna be different. I'm not excited about this because French curl hair just gives me stress just looking at it. You know, like, why is it so like silky and slippery? I'm not gonna like that. You know, usually when I'm doing braiding hair, it's like has some like texture to it. This is very loose. Also, how long is it even? It's actually not that long, so it might be okay. But when it's from the back of my neck, it kind of reaches my lower back. But then when it's from here, it's just right above my belly button. So it's not that long, but it's just the fact that the hair is so like smooth and silky, it's just giving me stress already. We actually don't even have to worry about this right now. Let's part first, and then when we're done parting, we're gonna come back to the hair. Because it's French curls, and again, the hair is like very thin and silky, I think I might have to make my parts just a little bit smaller than usual. Also to just like give it a full look. Like I think, yeah, definitely gonna have to make it a little bit smaller. So yeah, let's get started. So we have 4. Next row is probably gonna have either 5 or 6. When I'm parting, it's important for me to have the same size all across. So the same size from here, the same size from here. So sometimes I part and I notice like it's slanted like this, and it's just like uneven on this side versus this side. So I just have to make sure I balance it out. And then when I part vertically as well, it's important to make sure that this parting is also straight and equal to this. So this is not, I guess a simple way to think about it is just like a 4x4. So this is not going to be, the width of this is not going to be much bigger than this. So I always make sure it's like even. So the same width is even across. I'm going to make one more row. I do each parting in the middle of the one before. So this is a box. So the next parting should be in the middle of the box so that it doesn't all fall on the same line. So each ball falls in between, each braid falls in between the two boxes. If you look really closely, you notice that these boxes are just a tiny bit bigger than these boxes and these boxes, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as all the boxes across are the same size, that's okay. If the boxes are across or different sizes, that's not okay. Same sizes, okay. Different sizes, that's okay. Different sizes, not okay. Different sizes, okay. Why? I don't know. I made that up. I think it just looks better. But again, no one's looking back there, you know? When you get up to the front, a little bit kind of matters more. But at the back, who cares? At this point, you can continue the U pattern if you choose to, but I typically just go across because the U pattern kind of gets harder as there's no more U left to do. And also, I don't really do middle parts, so I don't feel the need to have a perfectly middle part parting. So for the front rows, I just use 3 sections because the front section of my hair is smaller than the next row. So I find that doing it this way instead of going with the U pattern allows me to choose a number of braids that I want for each row. So for the first row, I did 3 braids, and then for the second row, I did 4 braids, and then for the third row, I did 5 braids. And then for the fourth row, I have 4 braids, and then for the fifth row, which is that awkward section U, I have 3 braids there. So having 3, 4, 5, 4, 3 kind of gives me just a little bit more variety instead of having that same number of braids throughout. And also, it just works in line with the box method. I think the same way at the beginning of my parting, at the back of my neck, that I had 4 braids to start, and then for the next row, I had 6 braids. So it's just really the same idea. So having 3 braids for the first row and then having 4 braids just allows for that brick method, and then having 5 braids in the middle and then going back to 4 and 3. And you see it visually here as well. So now that the parting is done, I just put everything up in a ponytail and I just work one by one, removing each rubber band before I start. Okay, so now we braid. But first, I just need to figure out what this sizing is going to be. Now, towards the top of my head, my hair gets thicker than obviously the perimeter. So the sizes might change when I get to the top of my head just because I have to accommodate for bigger or thicker hair. But ideally, the sizes should remain the same all throughout. Is this going to maintain its curl? That's what I'm wondering. But each pack doesn't come with that much hair, as you can see. What's a good size? This could be too thick. I think I might go between this and this. Also, I should mention that these are not knotless. These are very much knotted. Using the same braiding method that I use. I think I'll do a close up when we get closer to the end. I'm definitely gonna have to do a lot of tucking. But to be very honest, I'm probably gonna focus on tucking when I get to the front rather than here at the back. This feels like it's going to slip off right when I let go. That's what it feels like. It's like I'm hanging on for dear life. I'm not quite sure where I want to stop braiding yet, but I'll decide that as I go. And one thing I've noticed that this hair doesn't like to be twisted to the other side. Like when I switch my arms, it just bunches up. In addition to it bunching up, you can notice that this first braid that I just did is already being unraveled. Because of the nature of the hair, you kind of have to finish braiding completely, glue it down before you can start another braid. But that's just something that I learned along the way as I went. But here are just a few clips of just some progress updates. At this point, I was about halfway done, and at this point, I was more than halfway done. I just had the front section to do. And again, just to be very transparent, there was a lot of this. There was a lot of starting and stopping because I guess I'm just not used to this type of hair, so I just felt like it wouldn't hold consistently. But for after a few times, I got the hang of it. And as you saw already, after each braid, I just use Kiss nail glue just to seal off the end before starting in the next braid. And with the glue, I noticed that as it dried very white, and I just saw that it was very obvious that there was glue at the tips, and I just didn't like that aesthetically. So, but thankfully, after day 4, it kind of disappeared over time. So, not too much to worry about. Here, I'm just showing you how I put shine and gem into my hair just to eliminate frizz. So, at the tail of each end of my natural hair, I just kind of put some shine and jam at the tips of my fingers, and that just kind of helps with tucking my hair behind the braid and as well as just eliminating frizz. I didn't do this consistently all throughout. I think some of the hair or some of the braids you will notice that there is a little bit of frizz. Those are just places that I didn't put as much shine and jam, but overall, I think it definitely helped slick down my hair and just eliminate all the frizziness that showed through the braid. Here, I just included 90 seconds real-time braiding of my hair, just in case you're wondering how I did them. So for each braid, I started off with parting my natural hair into 3, and then I just started my braid this way. I mentioned this later on, but you really have to hold down the knot with your middle finger in order for it to like hold in place and not shift throughout. as you're braiding, but that's basically how I did it. So I'll just let you watch that for about a minute. And you'll notice a little bit of buildup from the gel with the white stuff, but you can just brush that away and you'll be good to go. So let's get right down to it. One of my first qualms with this hair is that it's very, very thin. It is so thin, and it is not only thin, it is slippery. So I guess because I've never worked with French hair before, French curl hair before, I didn't know this, but the fact that it's so thin and slippery made braiding so much more difficult for me. As I parted my entire head and I started braiding like I usually do, I found there were so many hiccups along the way that just made it difficult for me to even want to continue and just finish my hair. But as I was braiding, I noticed that if I didn't hold on for dear life, if I didn't hold on my 3 strands for dear life, it will just be slippery. It will slip and slide, and I'll just say in summary, it's just not a beginner friendly hair to work with. So if you're just starting out braiding, or you're on your braiding journey or braiding by yourself, I wouldn't recommend it as a hair to start with because of its thin and slippery nature. And as I was going through, I felt that I always had to hold down the braid with my middle finger as I was braiding, just so it wouldn't slip and move. That's just not the case with normal braiding hair. And it's not my first time ever experiencing that. So I just didn't like it. It was just very frustrating to work with in general. Second is part of it being so thin. As you can see, the results, it's a very thin hair. So you can't really use a big chunk of hair as you braid. You kind of have to make them small. Like you're almost forced to make them micro braids. And the fact that I didn't count how many braids I have, you can tell that these are, or at least you can tell from my parting, there were a lot of parts. I've never done any parting smaller than these. So like these I felt, or at least I thought, was going to be sufficient enough to give me a very full look. But that's just not the case because the hair is so small and slippery and thin. While you're braiding, you kind of have to, or you're almost forced to make them micro braids. These boxes as they are just simply not small enough for them to be, for you to have a very full look. So that's number 2. The fact that it's a very thin and slippery hair means that you're going to get a very small quantity of hair. So if you wanted it to be fuller and bigger, you would definitely have to make smaller parts or make your parting smaller. Maybe not micro braids, but just a lot smaller than these. And these, in my opinion, are already very small. So I wasn't gonna make them any smaller than this. I don't have the patience. This is already a lot, in my opinion. But anyway, as I feel the hair, the bunch of hair in my hand, it's giving like small quantity. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's not very voluminous. But I will say that the bottom is voluminous. So The bottom is very, big, and I almost kind of feel like if I had scattered where I placed the curls, it might have made it look bigger, like the way you have boho curls. So for example, if these curls started a little bit earlier, then you might have had like, a little bit more of like a voluminous look, because it doesn't just start here. It might have started earlier and then you might have a bigger hair. But because I braided it all and I wanted it all to be starting from the same place, it kind of, you get what I'm trying to say. So number 3, this is not really a challenge, but it was just something that I found, I don't know, annoying. But sometimes I start a braid, and every braider does this. If you start a braid, I just stop somewhere here after my hair ends, and I just leave the rest to come back to later to braid all the rest at the same time. So I start, stop a braid, leave it, start, stop a braid, leave it, and then the end, I just braid all the ends. It's just, it doesn't make it any faster, but in my head, when I have all my braiding done and then I just have to braid the ends, it makes me feel better. But I couldn't do that with this hair because, again, it is such a slippery hair that you have to hold on for dear life. So I had to always braid till the end, stop, and then glue the hair before I could start a new braid. So again, it's not really a big challenge. I think it just forced me to finish every braid each time. But and another part of that is like I couldn't tie my hair and just leave it. If I tied it, it always slipped off. I mean, this is a very, just for illustration purposes, I know this is a very thick piece of hair, but while I tied it, the knot would not stay. Now I'll use a smaller piece of hair just to show you. But because the hair, again, is so slippery, you basically just have to use glue. You can't just tie it and call it a day for me. So every time I tied it, and sometimes I did 2 loops, it just wouldn't stay. So I was forced to basically use glue to glue them all. Again, I've never worked with French braids before, so I don't know if that's just like common practice to always use glue. But I definitely had to use nail glue for all of them, and that's why the ends look like that. At first it dried very white and it was bothering me, but it's been like 4 days now, so for some reason it got better, so I'm happy with it. Speaking of glue, the type of glue that I just use regular nail glue. So I use magic glue to start, and as I was going, this ran out, so I had to buy this. But you can use any nail glue. The key is for it to be somewhere to say max speed or max strength, because when I ran out of magic glue, I started using this Kiss precision glue, and this would not hold. Like, my hair just slipped off. Like, it was almost like I didn't put any glue on it. So this, for some reason, does not work, but this works. So it's still both Kiss, but this works better because says max speed, so it dries in seconds, versus the other one it's not max speed, I guess. And then I'd say the last challenge that I had was tucking my real hair underneath. So because, again, for the 60th time, because the hair is so thin, I couldn't quite tuck my hair in the way that I wanted, because no matter how much tucking I did, my hair shows through. So it was just a matter of tucking it as best as I could rather than like completely. But if you look really closely, there are some places where you can still see my hair, but it's not too bad. I still try to make sure that I tucked it behind and then have the front being being the section. But when you flip it over, you see my real hair in black, but it's not too bad. Like, I think the color, the way it's mixed, it kind of looks almost burgundy, but it was just way more difficult for the bigger pieces, again, because my hair on top of my head is just much thicker. I felt that I had to like make these partings a lot smaller for it to still be as uniform as the rest of them. So you might even notice that some of my hair on the top of my head is like way bigger in width than the ones at the front of my hair and the perimeter as well. But yeah, that's just a minor thing. And actually, that just reminds me of the fifth thing. I think when you're using French curls, you kind of have to be strategic about what kind of style of braiding you're using. Usually, I always do knotted braids. I've never done knotless braids before. Well, not never. I don't typically do knotless braids. I think whenever I do knotless braids, it's just for the perimeter of my hair rather than like my whole head. It's just way more time consuming to have to part my hair into three every time and like feed it almost like doing feeding cornrows. I find that way more time consuming, and it is more time consuming to do knotless braids. But using my regular method, I use knotted braids, and I felt that sometimes knotted braids, you can always see like the little knots on top. Again, because the hair is so small and slippery, I always saw the knot and I just didn't like that. So for a few of them, I did them knotless. I think for this one, it's knotless, and you can't see the knot at all. So for a few pieces in the front, I did knotless, but then the rest I just did knotted because I just didn't have the patience to do them all knotless. But I will say having the entirety of your head being knotless would be a much better effect if you don't like to see those knots. I think it's obvious in some areas and in some areas not so much, but knotless for French curls and French curls only, knotless over knotted braids. Yeah, at least for the top sections where you see, maybe for this area where your part is, and maybe for the perimeter as well. But okay, I think those are all the challenges. Otherwise, it's pretty to look at. The curls are quite nice. I think at first I noticed the fact that because these are braided, this feels weightless, but then this is where all the weight is. So it just feels like there's a lot of weight here. So my hair just almost feels like it's being weighed down, not from the top of my head, but from here, which is a different sensation when you're just like wobbling your head around. Like my hair doesn't feel heavy, but this part feels heavy. So all the weight feels like it's at the bottom. Other than that, I think it's a pretty good hairstyle. The curls are pretty. At first, I didn't like the fact that it was just all like this and not. Sounds like I didn't like a lot of things in the beginning, but it is true. I didn't love it at first, but I always felt the need to like curl it and make sure it all stayed the same, like, doing the same, using the same pattern. But after a while, I just left it. Again, it's only been 4 days having this hair on, but after a while, I wonder if the hair is gonna get very tangled, and how to mitigate that. I was thinking of spray bottle, but the spray bottle just made it wet rather than detangle. So the tangles are still there, it's just wet now. But anyway, but yeah, I think that's everything that I have to share. I didn't really focus on teaching during this video. Like I didn't really teach you how to braid. But I think again, if you know how to braid using the knotless method or knotted method, you can definitely achieve this style by yourself. But yeah, I think it's a fun, cute little hairstyle. I think I'm gonna try and do a few hairstyles just to see what it looks like with different styles and see how, see just the different ways that I could wear it. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.